Hi, and welcome back to Thinking Kingdom Thoughts. I'm Tracie, and I just want to thank you for returning again this week and enjoying this miracle season that we are doing. And so we're going to continue on with those miracles today with Mackenzie. Mackenzie, will you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm 25, and I've got two sisters and a couple nephews and a couple nieces and another one on the way.
Yeah.
And then I'm getting married here at the end of the year, which is pretty cool.
Uh-huh.
And besides that, I'm pretty boring.
Yeah, well, and she met her husband at the church where I had met her at, which was Grafted, and that website's listed down below too, but it has really knitted everybody together.
Yeah.
And it's just one big family now, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
It sure is. So, would you lead us out in prayer?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
All right. Father, thank you so much for the opportunity to come on the show today and tell about my experiences and give the testimony of my miracle. Thank you for aligning our schedules between me and Tracie finally, because I know that this has been a little bit of a hard thing to schedule, so I'm glad that we were able to finally do this. I pray that you continue to bless the show that Tracie's come up with, and keep giving her ideas and different ways to reach out to the community. Thank you for everything that you've given us, and we love you. Amen.
Amen. Yeah, he has been feeding me with the next season of what to do next.
Yeah.
And I'm just enjoying it because really, I mean, I'm the last person in the world to be doing this, honestly.
Well, you knew for a while. You
I
were
did.
talking to me about it for a while before you even started this.
Yeah, I was being Noah, or Moses. I can't talk, please. I can't, all these excuses. I don't know how to edit, Lord. I'm, not really good at this. It makes me nervous.
So why me type mentality.
Yeah, because this is something I don't know. I'm really enjoying it, and I'm thankful that he's put me in a place of something that I am enjoying doing. And I'm loving it because every week I'm with someone in the family, someone in the Grafted tribes coming,
Well, it's an impact to people watching, but also like you get impacted by all of these stories. You get to hear everything.
Yeah.
So even if people aren't watching every single week, like you get to hear it every single week, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it really is. I'm very thankful for it. Very thankful. Thank you, Lord. Thank you very much for that. And thank you for blessing the show. I appreciate that. I do. I'm good with where it goes. I'm just there for the ride. Whatever God does with it, he does.
That's all we can do.
Yeah, it is really. It truly is. So, when you think about the kingdom, what thought comes to mind for you?
I guess the word perfection is kind of what comes to mind for me, because you look at the world today and it's just, there's chaos everywhere and there's so much happening, and it seems like every week there's something to talk about or to get angry about, or all these different things. And so whenever you think about the kingdom, it's none of that's gonna matter. It's gonna matter what we do and how we worship and how we are sinless and just perfect, and that's literally what we were made to do. And so it'll be nice going to the kingdom, or being in the kingdom, and actually fulfilling what man was created for. Which is super cool. So that's kind of what
That's beautiful. Oh, I love that, Mackenzie. I really do. I like that. Yeah. So what one scripture kind of impacted you the most in your life so far? Because you're still young.
I'm a baby. Every time I think about scripture that impacts me or has impacted me the most, I always kind of go back to Noah and the flood, and how I grew up in the church, and I loved it, and I was there every week. I was a pastor's kid, and so...
Yeah, she's a PK.
I am. That's good and bad connotations. And so, I grew up going every week 2 or 3 times a week at least for hours at a time, and I loved being there, but it never felt personal, and it always felt like something was missing, and it was always kind of this like, people were telling me, whenever you feel it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, you're gonna know the Holy Spirit whenever you feel it.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't feel it. I don't feel it at all. Not what people were describing it as.
Yeah.
And so it always felt like I was kind of faking it. And then once I read, the story of Noah, my sister was like, so how many animals did he bring on the ark? And I was like, 2 by 2. Duh.
I got that one down right.
Well, we grew up going to church. I know it's 2 by 2.
That's like preschool, right?
Duh. Like those little workshop papers that you color or whatever in kids class.
Yeah.
2 by 2.
Yeah.
And so she was like, that's not what the Bible says. And I was like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
That's not what the Bible says.
I have done that before too.
And so then it's just kind of like that one part where I looked at it and I was like, what else? What else is wrong? What else was wrong that I was taught growing up that I never just did the research on?
Yeah.
Because I had my Bible the whole time, but it's like I put so much trust into what other people were saying instead of seeking it out for myself.
Yeah.
So that sent me on a big journey of rereading the Bible and trying to find, okay, well, what's actually true?
Yeah.
So that's the scripture that really kind of pushed me towards God.
Right. Getting in the Bible yourself, really seriously. And I think that Lex, our pastor, our shepherd, whatever people want to call him, but he has done such a good job of breaking a lot of that down too on Unlearn Lives, which is also listed down below in the description. He just does such a wonderful job with that. He really does. And has opened up thousands of people's minds to Jesus. And we call him Yeshua because that's, Hebrew for salvation, and that's Hebrew for Jesus. And so, what experience do you think drew you closest to y'all? I guess that would be it, wouldn't it? That you finally started getting into it yourself and digging and just, it's true. Lord, it's a living word. It's a living word. When you get into it, doesn't it feel like he's just talking to you? I mean, there's times when it's like, it's just exactly the scripture I needed.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Right at the time when I needed it,
Well, and have you ever done that thing where you're like, all right, what do I need to hear today? And you just open up the Bible to a random spot and you're like, oh man, that was it.
Yeah.
Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but
right.
Sometimes.
Yeah, we were, when my husband and I were in Ohio living, we had a big farm out there, and our neighbors was having some discussions with us, and we were like, what do we do with this, And so I'm like, I was so brand new at my new relationship with God. Like, I was really trying this time, and I'm like, well, I've heard some people say they just open the Bible up. So, with my young little mind of, newly Christian, I just opened the Bible up and turned it, and God blessed me so much with an answer. It was scripture that said, stay out of your neighbor's business. That's what it said. And I was like, no way. I mean, it was the first scripture on the page of my Bible, and I couldn't believe it.
God yelled at you.
Yes, he did. He did. Well, I really didn't want to be in their business, because I feel like that's their private life, and I really didn't want to know. But, they shared, and we prayed and all that, but that's all we needed to do. And then we stay out of their business, I mean, if they need help with something, of course, but this was something a little more private, and I'm just like so glad to just stay out of it.
Yeah.
And my husband kind of did like you couldn't believe it. He's like, well, we got to do it. It's right there. He's telling us. I'm like, exactly. I'm listening. You know. So.
Man, well, going on that journey of just opening the Bible and like, okay, well, what's real, what's not?
Mm-hmm.
You know, that was the first time that night that I had that feeling that people were talking about, where it's like I was sitting on the couch talking with my sister, and it was crazy because even that night was crazy in itself, where, you know, I was a server at a restaurant for years.
Yes, you were.
And I had these two ladies, they would come in almost every single week and always sit in my section. We would always talk, and it was super, super nice, and they were wonderful. And then one week, I don't know what it was, but they come in, and she goes, "You look different today." And I was like, "Thanks. I don't know what that means, but thank you."
Yeah.
And she was like, "You know, I've never told you this, but we're actually pastors, and we specifically help people with like God encounters and helping process all of that." And so she was like, "Usually whenever I feel like this, it's because you just had one, or you're about to feel God, and so you need someone to talk to." And I was like,
yeah,
okay.
I'm just here to serve tables, but this is great.
Yeah. And then I found out that she said, "And just so you know, like, there's another location of the restaurant that I worked at. There was 2 locations. They came to my location, which was 30 minutes out of the way,
Oh,
and
wow.
they live beside the other location. And they came and they were sitting in my section one time, and for a year they were coming back every day,
Yeah.
or every week."
Yeah.
And she was like, "We just felt like we had to keep coming back to you, even though, you know, we're right beside the other location. We just wanted to be with you. And so now we know why. And
Yeah.
so it's for this." And so I was like, "This is crazy." So then I'm going home, and I had an awful day at work. It was awful. Like, textbook, everything sucked.
Yeah.
And I told my sister, and this is going to be part of my testimony in a bit, I wanted to go into my room. I wanted to smoke, and I wanted to chill and be alone, because I was smoking weed back then.
Yeah.
And so I told her, I told her, I was like, "I had a long day. I'm gonna go sit in my room. I just don't want to do anything right now." And she calls out, and she was like, "Do you want to watch a movie?" And I literally went to say the word no, and I was like, "Yeah." And I was like,
wait, where did that come from?
And then I'm like, crap, now I have to. Because I can't just be like, "No, never mind.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to say that." You
Right.
know, like, that sounds rude. So we went out, watched a movie, we turned on a movie. And then we just started talking. And then she brought up God, because she's in a relationship with her now husband, Adam. And they've just come into Torah.
Yeah.
I'm watching from the background, like, these people are crazy. They're doing like this, like the Friday night, like, candle lighting and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, and I was interested, so I'd like peek around the corner on Friday nights, and I'm like, "You guys are crazy," and then I just go to bed, right? And so she talks to me about that a little bit, and then I was sitting there and I was talking to her, and I was like, "I don't get faith. Like, I get the idea of faith, but to put all of your faith in something that you literally can't see makes no sense to me."
Yeah.
Don't see it. I don't feel it. I haven't experienced it. I tried for years.
Yeah.
I was leading small groups. I was, you know, doing kids ministry. I was doing all that stuff. I worked in the daycare, and I was very, very active in the church.
Right.
And I was going through the motions, and it was like, I don't feel anything. So I just stopped one day.
Yeah.
And so I didn't go to church for several years. And she was talking to me, and then she brought up Noah and the ark. And I was like, what? And then it all kind of clicked.
Yeah, because you found out that it was 7 clean and 2 unclean.
Mm-hmm.
And it will tell you that in Genesis, if you haven't found that out for yourself yet. I wish I could remember what chapter. I think it's chapter 6, verse 2, but please don't go on that, because I may be wrong. I'm just a human being trying to guess right now.
And I'm not that person. People will be like, "What's this verse?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
in the Bible, I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't memory verse it. I can't do any of that stuff. I'm so bad with Bible verses. So then we were just talking, and she brought up Noah, and I was like, what? And she was like, yeah, there's so much that I've learned that we were wrong about, that we were taught wrong about. And it's nothing with the church. It was just religion today is
Yeah.
so wrong about so many things, and
Yeah.
so we kind of fell into that. So then I'm talking to her, and I was like, I don't get it, I don't feel it, I don't understand. And then all of a sudden I'm like sobbing because I felt it, and it was like in me sitting there telling her, I don't understand how you can like have faith in something you don't feel, you don't understand. Immediately I felt it, and I was like, I get it, and I like lost it, and I was crying. And that was the night that I actually like felt God and like came back into a relationship with him. And it was literally all because I had a bad day and I wanted to go smoke, but then I didn't, and so then I'm hanging out with my sister. We didn't even watch the movie. Like,
Yeah.
we didn't end up watching any of it.
No,
It was
you
just
got
in the
better-
background.
Yeah.
But that was kind of how I came into a relationship with him. That was kind of the experience. So I grew up with it, but I didn't go into it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So.
I get it. And right early on, here he is telling us about it was important to him for us to eat clean, even then, before he set down the laws at Mount Sinai to tell us very plainly that that's what he expected. He is planning that all out. And I just met someone last week that just started with Grafted. Lamone mentioned to me that, you know, if they had eaten the unclean, they would have ended the species completely.
Mm.
And I never thought about it like that, because it would have been, you know, just ending it very quickly, you know, and hadn't thought about it like that. And so it was really good to put that in there as well for me.
The 7 of clean and the 2 of unclean is important because it shows, well, we need more clean animals because you can't sacrifice in the temple.
Right.
You can't sacrifice unclean animals. You can't eat unclean animals, so you don't need as many of them.
Yeah.
They have a purpose.
Yeah.
But we don't need as many. That's why there was only 2, so that it didn't spiral out of control.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, we just, like
because we don't have purpose for them.
Yeah.
Besides, I mean, pigs are basically like garbage disposals.
Yeah. And if you look at the clean and unclean in the diet, a lot of it, like shrimp, is like the cockroach of, you know, the sea. And so
It's like the physical makeup is literally, and like the nutritional value is that of a cockroach.
and that's something. So that alone will make you not want to eat shrimp. I never did eat shrimp anyway. But I just hearing that, you know, and then vultures who eat dead stuff off the road, that is unclean. And it just all kind of makes sense.
Well, and even in, you know, Noah's Ark, where he sent out the crow,
Mm-hmm.
and then he sent out the dove because the crow didn't come back.
Right.
That's because it was an unclean animal. It was eating the dead things.
Yeah.
And then the dove didn't have anything to eat because it's not a scavenger, and so it came back because it had food on the ark.
Right.
But then when it didn't come back, that's when he knew, okay, there's land because it has food finally.
Yes.
So then he knew. But the crow, he let that go. It didn't come back because it had a food source.
Right. Exactly.
It all
eats
ties
toys.
together.
Yeah.
And like that's just the food. That's just the clean and unclean. There's also like the Sabbath, and I learned, you know, what the word perpetual means for the first time ever, and it literally says unending and unchanging. That is the definition of perpetual.
Yeah.
And the Sabbath is one of the only laws that literally states this is a perpetual covenant,
Yes.
and that like you have to do this forever and without ceasing. Like
Yeah. And so, you know, that all got changed with Constantine, which is not God, you know. And these are not, I don't look at these as just Jewish laws, because he gave it out at Mount Sinai to also the mixed multitude that came with the Jewish folks, you know. So, and actually that wasn't even, you know, that was later on that they got split up into tribes and things. So I see it as God's instructions to us, not Jewish. Because some people have asked me, did you go Jewish? Are you, you know, following the Jewish rules now or what?
all the time.
And no, they're God's.
Well, and if you believe that, you know, Jesus and God are the same, they're his, which is why whenever he was here, he was following the Sabbath. He was doing the food laws. So whenever Christians today are like, well, what would Jesus do? Like, what would he do?
Yes.
What did he do?
He did the feast.
And do it.
He did the Sabbath.
That was so important.
Yes. Yeah.
And so that, I could go on and on about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I know. Well, we've given a lot of ideas for those who are not Torah observant, that if you're more interested, please email me or make a comment down below, and we'll be sure and make contact with you, and with any other curiosities that you might have. We would enjoy talking to you more about that. Can you share your miracle today?
All right. Man, I gotta go back for this one. So, it's hard to find a beginning for this because it sort of is what I was healed of came from a lot of, I don't like the word trauma because I feel like everything is a trauma these days. Like, oh, that was a trauma. But like, I had, my mom died of cancer when I was 4. And then growing up, there was a lot of stuff that happened because of that, where I was always kind of closed off, and I would have a lot of, oh gosh, how do I even explain this? I would have a lot of issues with consistency. I needed something that's consistent, and I needed something that was like, whenever something is so constant in your life and it's literally just ripped from you.
Yeah.
And then, you know, my dad was engaged after that, and then they broke up. So then whenever I met my stepmom, the first time I met her, I called her mom. Because I was looking for that thing.
You're starving for that.
I was wanting that consistency. And it was a little bit of a control thing, because it was like something happened at such a young age that I couldn't control.
Yeah.
So a lot of this has to do with what I can control to make myself feel better. And so growing up, you know, several people from church know this. I grew up dancing. I danced for...
She's a beautiful dancer.
I danced a long time. I did it competitively for years. And I feel like for like... oh my gosh. 12 years?
Yeah.
13 years, something like that.
You can tell dancing. A lot of time has been invested in your dancing and your discipline with it. When you see her dance, it's just very adamant that you have taken a lot of time with it.
Well, and it's hard whenever you have so much training. I mean, like 5 to 6 days a week, several hours at a time. My whole childhood, that's what was dedicated. And so whenever you have all that time and energy put into something, it's hard to just not do that anymore. So even with like the dance circle at church, I'm very like, I want to be very precise. So whenever I saw that we were dancing at church, I was like, I don't know how to do that. I don't think I can do that. And so I tried so hard, and I was so in my head because of my training, where it was like, I was watching and I was like, I don't get it, and I can't do it. I can't get out of my mind because I'm so focused on getting the steps right.
Yeah.
Because that's what I was trained to do.
Yeah.
And so it all kind of ties in. But whenever you grow up dancing, especially competitively, there is a very toxic culture within the dance community.
Oh.
And it centers around perfection, being a certain body type, being a certain flexibility, and, you know, consistency, and eating habits, and exercise. And I heard a lot growing up, you're good, but you're not as good as this person. You're not to this person's level. And it's a very intense comparison problem.
Yeah.
So whenever, growing up, I'm doing it so much, that is constantly what I'm hearing. So I can grow up being a confident person, but then I always have that voice in the back of my head that's like, well, you're not this person. You're not as good as this person. So it's a strategy that dance teachers use to better you, but I know so many dancers who left dance and their mental status was absolutely crushed because they are still kind of trying to find that constant comparison.
Yeah,
and
especially when it's so involved in your life.
Every day, like, it's just a constant thing. And I didn't have horrible teachers. I had a couple teachers that were really, really rough.
Mm-hmm.
But most of my teachers are so positive and wonderful, and I did have such great experiences.
Yeah.
But it is a toxic culture.
Yeah. It is with gymnastics too. My niece was in that. And
gymnastics and cheerleading are kind of the big ones because it's all about physique as well. So that was fun.
Yeah.
So again, when Mom died, it was about controlling my circumstance, and then it became dancing where it's a comparison game. So that's kind of the mindset that I've carried my whole life.
Yeah.
And I never really did therapy. So this is all kind of like self-discovery type stuff.
Yeah.
I've talked with my dad about this, and he knows all of this pretty in depth. We've had really great conversations.
Yeah, I like your dad. I've had a chance to meet him once, and I really liked him. Yeah.
He's a good guy. He's a good guy. He's crazy. He's a goof, but I like him.
Yeah.
So then I stopped dancing. I did pom after I stopped dancing, so that kind of continued, and I was kind of the outcast in pom. Because again, it was comparison. Same thing carried over. They're all dancers, but it was for school.
Yeah.
So I was still dancing, but I wasn't as connected to the toxicity.
Yeah.
And it was a different type of toxicity. Then my senior year of high school, I decided I'm not going to be pom anymore. I just want to be a kid. I want to be in the stands, and I want to watch football because I grew up watching football. Like, I was the girl on pom who would be sitting, and I'd be so into the game that I'd forget that I'm supposed to be doing stuff. Like, that's who I always was. And it made my dad so proud. And I was like, senior year, I want to relax. I don't want this commitment, this time commitment. I just want to be with my friends. I haven't been able to do that. So quit pom, got out of the cycle completely. Just kind of cold turkeyed it. But that mindset never stops. So then it transformed into, well, I'm not working out 5 to 6 days a week. I gained a healthy amount of weight, meaning 15, 20 pounds.
Yeah, see, these dancers are so underweight and unhealthy looking, really.
They're unhealthy looking, but like genuinely, I was healthy. Dancers are very healthy, but it's because of what they're doing.
Yeah.
They're so active. I ate all the time. Literally all the time. And I was like 110.
Yeah.
So when I say I gained 20 pounds, I got up to about 130.
You were healthy looking.
I was a healthy looking kid because I wasn't as active. So I was healthy for what my activity level was.
Yeah.
But when I looked in the mirror and I saw I was gaining weight, all of the mindset stuff was still there from dance, where it's like, you're fat. You don't look like all of these other dancers. And I was like, I don't have the same dancer body that I used to. Oh no. So then when I got to college, the mindset then transformed into, well, how can I control it? How can I control what's happening to me because of childhood trauma? And that became severe anorexia. So I was pretty anorexic when I was in college. I ate a little bit, but it got to the point where I would be so full after 4 bites.
Yeah.
And then I'd be like, oh, I'm full,
Yeah.
I can't eat anymore. And it was a mindset thing. And I'm not crying, I promise. That was just an itch, but it might look like I was crying. I wasn't. And it was a mindset thing. And so it was constantly, and now instead of dance comparison, it's, oh, that sorority girl. She's skinny, but she's active. She's going to the gym. She's doing all this stuff.
Yeah.
So it was a self-discovery. And at this time is kind of when I stopped going to church. And I just kind of started to figure out who I was without all of this stuff that I grew up with. I met some really wonderful people that I'm still friends with. A couple of them are coming to my wedding. Like, I'm still really good friends with these people. None of them knew I was dealing with this.
Yeah.
So, comparison to sorority girls was the new dance phase. So through anorexia, I went down to about 110, 115, which was just not eating.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't unhealthy looking, but I was unhealthy.
Yeah.
If you just looked at me, you'd be like, oh, she's skinny. That was all it was. That's all I looked like, but it was not that. So then anyone who knows about anorexia, the biggest problem that people have and they don't really talk about is that when you starve yourself so much, so consistently, you don't feel hunger anymore.
Right.
That feeling leaves.
Yes.
And you kind of start making up reasons like, oh, my stomach's growling. Oh man, yeah, my stomach's just upset. No, that was a hunger growl. But you've told yourself it wasn't.
Wow.
So then eventually that mindset, it's a mindset thing.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually that becomes the reality.
Yeah.
And so I had forced myself to realize, or to think that every time my stomach growled, oh man, like my stomach really hurts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because you're literally freaking starving.
Yes.
But I wouldn't let myself feel like that.
Oh.
And so that went on for a couple years. I say a couple years. I was anorexic for a while. And in the beginning, I smoked weed for the first time. I had no feeling of hunger.
Now that's unusual, isn't it? Doesn't that? I've always heard that gives you the munchies. That's what they called it back in the day. Yeah.
Well, that's what I found out happens. Because the thing is, I had the mindset where I wanted to control it, but I never said that I was anorexic. So I always just thought, oh, I'm getting skinny.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting skinny, not realizing what my mindset was doing. Now I can look back and say that was anorexia, but in the moment, I didn't think it was.
Yeah.
So I smoked for the first time, and I was like a bottomless freaking pit.
Uh-huh.
I was so hungry, nothing could satisfy my hunger, but I didn't feel it. It was like the marijuana like numbed the part of my brain that I had trained to say, oh, you're full after 4 bites. That was gone.
Yeah.
When I was smoking. So then it became, because sorry, I'm kind of jumping all over the place.
No, you're okay.
In that mindset, it wasn't that I was thinking I need to starve myself to look good. It was like this weird brain disconnect where it was like, I want to be skinny and also I'm not really hungry.
Mm-hmm.
But I never thought that it was a problem. So then I didn't realize it, but I literally wanted to eat, but I wouldn't let myself.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to explain it unless you understand, because you've lived it. It just sounds confusing.
No, I get it. I had someone in my life that was bulimic, and it was a real shock to her when she found out, because she would binge and purge, you know, and so she liked to eat but wanted to get it back up right away, and then found out that your body just starts doing that because you've trained it to do that.
Yeah.
And then it got scary, yeah.
And it's not even like you go into it thinking, I'm gonna throw up because I want to.
Yeah.
It's because, oh, I don't want this in me anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Not because I want to throw up.
Right.
I don't want to do that. Like, it's, you want to, but you don't think you want to. You don't think that's what it is.
Yeah.
So when I was smoking, I was like, oh, finally I can eat.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like, I don't know. I wanted to eat. I thought something was wrong with me. Then smoking, I was like, oh, I can eat again.
Yeah.
There is something wrong with me. But when I smoke, I'm fine.
Yeah.
So I just kept smoking.
Yeah.
And then it got to the point where anytime I wanted to eat, I had to smoke. And it became a pretty vicious cycle.
Yeah.
And if I imagine every single time that you eat, my sister would make dinner and she'd be like, you have 15 minutes.
Uh-huh.
I'd go smoke because she knew that's what I had to do in
Right.
order to eat a full meal.
Wow.
And that was an everyday thing. I got so numb to it. And then
Well, you're self-medicating, honey.
I was.
You know, and
Yeah.
some people don't realize that when you're doing other substances, it's really just trying to medicate. A lot of people are just self-medicating. They're not looking for the high. They're trying to self-medicate.
That's what I was doing. I didn't care about the high. I just wanted to eat.
Yeah.
That's all I wanted. Sometimes, yeah, of course, I would just smoke to smoke because it was nice and it felt good, right? But that wasn't the whole goal. Then, after about a year, the anorexic look turned into, I became a binge eater. And my weight fluctuated so intensely. I went from about 115 to almost 200 pounds.
Yeah.
Because I was smoking so consistently and I was eating a full pizza every single night. And I was I was eating so much because that off switch wasn't there.
Yeah.
It did not exist.
Yeah.
I would get tired because of how much food I had eaten, and that's how I knew how to stop, not because my body said I'm full.
Yeah.
So it was this weird thing of trying to find a balance between the two. And I came to Jordan and Adam came to God, came to Torah, came back to Grafton.
Yeah.
When I was in that phase. And so then on the flip side, we were moving out of our house because all of us were living together. We were moving out of our house into a new house. So I had to save up money for deposits and all that kind of stuff. Which meant that I had to sacrifice something. And that ended up being that I couldn't pay for weed for a month.
Yeah.
I had to sacrifice that, and I did, and I dropped about 60 pounds in about a month to a month and a half because I just stopped eating.
Yeah.
I couldn't smoke, and it wasn't a problem for me. I just stopped. And then it was, oh, you're losing weight. You look really nice. You look good. And people were complimenting me because I was losing that weight.
Yeah.
And so it was just, again, feeding into that mindset of like skinny good, fat bad. Right? And so that was a vicious cycle. And then I was dealing with a lot of hormonal changes throughout all of this because you know about my history with fibroadenomas in my breasts.
Yes.
That all happened because of my anorexic tendencies and the hormone shifts. And so throughout all of this, the first time that I started to show signs of anorexia and my hormones changed, I found my first lump that year.
Yeah.
And I was in high school. Then I got that removed because obviously it's a cancer scare, and
Yes.
I was terrified, and I know kind of
Yes.
about that. So the mindset that goes into that is really scary because my mom died of a brain tumor when I was a kid. That's how she died, was cancer. And so it was like,
wow.
Cancer, like I was freaking out.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I'm going through all of this while I'm dealing with that cancer scare. I also have chronic migraines. And so I've had chronic migraines for years and years. Like since 4th grade, I've had migraines. And I ended up having to get a scan in my brain because I had them so frequently out of nowhere that we were worried that I had a brain tumor.
Yeah,
While
right.
also dealing with
with
possible breast cancer. So it was like all of this was happening at once because of hormone issues. And then I had 2 more lumps. One of them happened when I was binging, and my hormones were over here because I was anorexic, and then I binged and they flipped. And then I dropped 60 pounds in 1 month because I stopped smoking and they flipped again. Yeah. So every time something big happened, I would get new lumps. And that was kind of, it was all hormone based. Yes. And I didn't realize that until obviously years later. I was like, it makes sense. I looked at the timeline. I was like, that has to be it. Yeah. That literally has to be it. So I asked a doctor and she was like, I mean, yeah, that can happen. Yeah. So it wasn't cancer. It was just the hormonal issues. And like my face, this is all rosacea, which is also a hormone issue. Yeah. And it also came from my anorexia. Wow. So I still am going through all of these like hormonal changes because of everything I've dealt with. Yeah. But come to grafted, I'm still smoking. Yeah. I feel good and I'm still going through all of these like body changes, but I don't think it's a big deal. And my sister knows we're very, very close. Yeah. Me and her are very close. Probably too close for most people, but I love her. I don't care. We're like the same person. Yeah.
My sister and I are close too.
Yeah.
I mean, I have 3 sisters that's still living, and I just love them. Yeah. Each in a different way, but equally.
Yeah, definitely.
Excuse me.
She sees what goes on behind the scenes, so I can be completely normal. I'll be fine. And back then, we were doing oneg. So we were eating. Right. So I had to smoke before going to church every week.
Yeah, in order to eat.
To eat before church.
Wow.
And that would numb me. Mm-hmm. And it got to the point where I was like, I believe in God. I know God exists. I felt him. But I haven't felt him in so long. I haven't heard him in so long. I was just so stagnant, and I was very stale in my relationship with God because I had to smoke to eat so that I didn't go back to what I was, because I felt bad about the rapid weight changes. Like, I knew that was bad, but I had to at that point. It was a dependency for literally sustaining my life. I had to smoke. Yeah. And so it's like when... Have you ever heard God just go quiet? Uh-huh. That was happening. And it was awful. Yeah. It was awful. And I was trying, but every time I was smoking was at home because I would eat, and then it lasts for so long. It's like, I can't go pray like this. So I just stopped praying. Oh. And then I would be high at church. No one would know. Because I was so used to it. I had been doing it for so long. It was just who I was. Yeah. No one knew I smoked. Yeah. A very select few people knew that I smoked. But they also knew why. And so I just hit this place of like quiet. And I was very anxious, and I didn't want to express myself at church. I didn't want to sing out loud because I was the overthinking everything. I was like, my voice sounds terrible. I can't sing out loud because someone's going to hear me. And it was like I would spiral in my mind. And there was one week where we were going to go to Sukkot soon. Sukkot soon. And my sister was doing a 10-day fast leading up to Yom Kippur.
Yes.
Which, if you don't know Yom Kippur, it's basically a day of remembrance, and you repent for all of the sins for that year. It's actually one of the most beautiful and gut-wrenching holidays.
Yeah.
Like,
really,
it is really hard to go through because it's a day of complete and total fasting.
Yeah.
You know, we do no food, no water.
Yeah.
No phone, no nothing. We literally sit and we read Hebrews and we pray and we repent all day. It's a 24-hour thing.
Yeah.
So she was doing a 10-day fast leading up to that. And I have never seen her so spiritually intense and spiritually involved. Like, she was feeling God. She was feeling him. She was hearing him.
Yeah.
Very intensely, right? Like, you want to feel God, don't eat for 10 days.
Yeah.
Not only that, be a mother who is cooking food for her kids and her husband while not eating and fasting for 10 days.
Yeah.
That will kill you.
Yeah, that's courageous.
And she did phenomenal. I commend her greatly for that. But during this time, she was so in tune with what God was saying. And we went to church service, and Tracie was healed that night. And
she was on a few weeks ago, about a month ago, folks. So.
And that was great. And we were so excited, and it was wonderful. And I was high the whole time. The whole time. I was in my head. I was freaking out. I was spiraling in my thoughts, but outward, like, I was fine.
Yeah.
But internally, I was not okay. And I was having one of those weeks where it's like, I literally can't even sing during worship because I'm so anxious. And I was just silent. And I was like, what is wrong with me? And that night, Tracie got healed, and I come in the room, or I'm in my room, and I'm smoking, and this time wasn't to eat. It was just because I was so, I don't know, I wanted to go to bed, and it was easier for me to go to bed if I was high. I would just pass out. I would go to bed.
Yeah.
And I was smoking, and my sister comes in. She was like, hey, are you, I don't know what she said. She said something. We were talking, and then all of a sudden she brought up the feast that was coming up. We were going to Sukkot soon. And, like, this is the day before Yom Kippur. So usually it's, like a week or two after that we go to Sukkot.
Yeah.
And so she was like, are you gonna bring your pin to Sukkot? And I hadn't told her this, but I was planning on fasting to see how long I could go without it because I was just so tired of being where I was.
Yeah.
And
so your pen is what? It's not a writing device, right?
No, sorry. So it's like portable weed, but it's a very, very concentrated thing.
Okay.
It's very concentrated. It's very intense. But I was so used to it that, like, I needed the stronger stuff. Oh, that was out of order. I'm so sorry. First, she was like, hey, by the way, God told me to tell you something. And first of all, when someone says God told me to tell you something, take that with a grain of salt, but also get ready to be smacked in the face.
Yeah.
She goes, God told me to tell you that he can't hear you. And I was like, he said that? He said that? What? And I freaked out because I knew what she was talking about.
Yeah.
She didn't know what that meant, right?
Yes.
But for me, I was like, I mean, yeah, because I'm being very quiet and I'm anxious and all this stuff. So she spent like 30 minutes praying over me, and like 10-day fast, she was praying over me, right?
That's
and
right.
we're sobbing and we're crying and we're having a good time. And then she was leaving my room, and then all of a sudden she stops and she goes, are you bringing me a pen to Sukkot? And this is after she just prayed over me for 30 minutes about how God can't hear me.
Yeah.
Right? And so I'm already like
a hot mess.
Like
yeah.
absolutely drenched in tears and like makeup all like I looked crazy.
Yeah.
And she was like, she did this thing, and I was like, she said that, and I said, well, I was actually planning on fasting from it, but I'll probably still bring it so that I can eat, right? Because she knows what a burden it is for me. She knows what that means. And so I said, you know, I'm probably going to bring it so that I can eat. And she stops, and she like pauses, and it's like she heard something. She heard a voice where she kind of goes, oh. And it was like a moment where something just clicked for her. And she goes, oh, I think you're going to be healed by then. And I was like, what? And she goes, oh, yeah, you're definitely going to be healed by then. And I was like, wait a minute, what did you just say? And so I immediately just like, because that meant so much.
Yes.
Even if that's not true, like, she knows all of the mental stress and everything going on. Like, she knew because she saw all of it. She saw everything.
Thank you.
That's why it's there, right? I told you I wasn't gonna cry, and you're like, I'm probably gonna cry. So then,
it's so glorious though when he, you know.
Yeah. So then, I'm bawling, and it was like an immediate thing where she was like, oh yeah, you're definitely gonna be healed by then. And I was like, and I started crying again. And I just spent 30 minutes crying with her. So then she comes back in my room and she starts praying over me again. And she prays for another 30 minutes.
Wow.
Like, when I tell you this woman was anointed that night, I mean it.
Yeah.
So then I'm just like shocked. And I'm so emotionally exhausted because it's been quite the evening, right, with Chelsea getting healed, and then that was the night that, you know, Carmen had her leg thing. She was right beside me, so I saw all of the stuff happening with Carmen. I saw Chelsea doing her thing, and then I'm sitting there, and then, like, it was just a very emotionally overwhelming day.
Yeah.
I went to bed. The next day was the Yom Kippur service, which was after the normal church service. So this was a Sunday, and we were leaving for Sukkot that Thursday.
Yeah.
I remember that because it was church, Yom Kippur, and then that Thursday was Sukkot. So this was on Sunday. We got dressed up in our white. We were having a good time because during Yom Kippur you're supposed to wear white traditionally, for like purity, I think is what someone said.
That makes sense.
For to like represent purity because you're repenting for all of your sins and they're forgiven. So you're white as snow.
Well, we're gonna meet him, and he's gonna dress us in white gowns.
Yeah.
So,
So I'm getting dressed, and I smoked because we were going to eat dinner before the service because fast was gonna start that night at sundown. So we all did like a potluck that day before, so that when sundown came, we were good to go. We could eat the next day at sundown. So we did Yom Kippur service. It was great. It was wonderful. After service, I walked up to Amber Thornborough, and she knew what was going on with me. She knew that I smoked. She knew all of that stuff.
had you told her that, or?
Yeah, there was like a thing we had to work out where it kind of just came out. And so she knew, and
by the way, I love you, Amber.
love you. So I walked up to her and I was like, you will never believe what Jordan said. My sister. You will never believe what Jordan said last night. And I was so excited to tell her.
Yeah.
Because she knew, and she was like the only person at the time that knew what was going on. So I told her, and she was like, you need to talk to Chelsea. And I was like, what? And she's like, you need to tell Chelsea. So then she calls Chelsea over. And so then I'm having to tell Chelsea about all of this.
Right.
Turns out Chelsea, because of her hip issues,
Yes.
she was self-medicating.
Right.
So she had just gone through the same thing that I'm kind of going through. Obviously very different, but the same sort of thing.
Right.
And she literally had just been healed the night before, and she was like, you gotta tell Chelsea. So then I'm like, okay. I tell Chelsea, and she kind of tells me, I did not know that she was self-medicating. I didn't know any of that. I only knew that she had her hip problems and she was healed, and we were like, oh, Chelsea, she's running around, you know. Again, love you, Chelsea.
Yes, Chelsea.
So then,
person.
oh my gosh, she's spunky. So then they're trying to shuffle us out of the church pretty quickly that night because it's not our normal night. It's Yom Kippur. We want to get everyone out so we can go home, start repenting, right? And I am pulled outside by Amber and Chelsea and Jordan, my sister. And they are like, it's freezing outside, mind you. We're not in coats. We're not in any of that stuff. These women all just sat and prayed over me. I had Jordan on this side in the back. I had Amber on this side in the back. And I had Chelsea like this, holding my stomach.
Wow.
And it was like, they were just going. I could not tell you a word that was said during this prayer. I literally have no idea. Yeah. I heard a couple things. There was like Esther was thrown out at one point, and I didn't know what that meant till way later. That's a different story. I won't get into that.
Okay.
But there was like a moment where I felt it, you know, and I felt the mindset change a little bit, but it was like a physical thing that happened. And Chelsea literally stops in the middle of praying. She was like, I literally feel your stomach getting stronger. And I was like, okay. Yeah. And I felt it. And I felt myself literally being almost like pieced back together. Like it felt like I was so weak because of the physical state that I was in.
Yeah.
And the malnutrition to the point where, I don't know if you remember this, during this time, you had even told me, which like people joke around about all the time, you were always like, girl, we need to put some weight on your bone, like we need to put some meat on those bones. You have said that to me so many times.
I know.
And you had no idea
that
I was anorexic. You had no idea that I was going through all this stuff.
Right.
Which I was.
Yeah.
When you were saying this to me.
Yeah.
And like now I know, like looking back, that that's what was happening, but like there's no way you would have known.
No, I didn't know.
So they finished praying over me. Jordan, mind you, still on the 10th day of her fast. Amber, mind you, always spiritual amazingness, right?
I know, these girls are powerhouse for the Lord. Absolutely.
Like exhausting sometimes, because it's like, man, I want some of that.
Yeah,
you know,
it's beautiful.
Like, are you guys not just so tired emotionally all the time because you're just like feeling God constantly? Like, that's how it feels sometimes.
Yeah.
But it's so wonderful. So then I get in my car and I'm like, thanks guys. And I like give them hugs, and me and Jordan are in the car. She's silent and I'm like, what is going on? It's like a 15-minute drive back to our house.
Yeah.
Like, what is going on? She was like, you are not healed yet. And I was like, are you sure? Like, I feel pretty healed. She's like, nope, there's one more thing you got to do, but I can't tell you what it is. And I was like, and Amber said the same thing. She had texted Jordan and she was like, she's not healed yet. She has something else she has to do. And Jordan was like, I heard the same thing. I know what she has to do, but like, we can't tell her. She's got to figure that out. So I go home and I'm like, okay, like what's going to happen? I'm wearing a skirt, mind you. I didn't even change. I was just like straight to my closet because I wanted to pray and I wanted to figure out what was going on. And I was sitting in my closet and I was like, we have not talked in a very long time. I don't have that, like, oh, that was God, right? I don't have that click yet in my relationship with God. And now I know how he speaks to me, but back then I was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be hearing. So I straight up, I like kind of told God, don't tell God anything because he knows. I told him, I was like, you got to be real clear with me about what I'm supposed to do. I don't care what it is. That's fine. I'll do it. But like, I have to know what to do. And like, I don't know how that's going to work. I don't know if you're going to be like, Mackenzie, and like tell me, or if I'm just going to like mental download, like know what it is.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. But it wasn't like I knew that was what I was supposed to do. I just got the most overwhelming urge. I was like, I just need this out of my house. I need all of it out of my house. I grabbed my little trash can. Mind you, audience, I had just re-upped, which is like just repurchased and restocked on like a lot of money's worth of stuff.
Yeah.
I had probably between $500 to $700 worth of glass, paper, products. Like I had a stash.
Yeah.
And I was like, I have to get it up. I need it away from me.
Yeah.
And I put it in my trash can, and I'm like, I've got my trash can, and I'm like marching outside, and I throw it in the trash. And I had put some of it aside because I was going to give it to my friends because it was expensive.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I have friends who smoke, so I'll just give it to them. So I put it aside, and I took the rest out, and I was outside, and my sister comes out, and she was like, did he tell you? And I was like, I don't know, but I needed it gone. And she was like, is this all of it? And I said, well, and she goes, all of it. And I was like, okay. So I run inside, and I get the rest, and I walk out, and I throw it away. She was like, you know what we need to do now? And I was like, what?
Sleep? I don't know.
Go to bed? Eat? Oh, wait, it's a fast. Yeah. Like, that's how it felt. And she was like, you know what we need to do? We need to blow shofars.
Yes.
So then she goes, and we blow shofars. And we were outside and blew shofars, and we come in, and I changed clothes because I was in my skirt, and I was like, I'm so tired. And I'm sitting on the couch, and I've got my brother-in-law now, Adam, sitting across from me. Jordan's in the kitchen with the kids, and then I've got a friend on the couch as well. And so we're like sitting there, and we're talking, and a couple minutes later, I was like, God, my stomach is killing me. I don't know what's happening. My stomach hurts so bad. And I was like, I was sitting there, and I was looking like this, and I was just thinking, and I was very silent, and Adam was like, are you okay? And I was like, I think I'm hungry. And he was like, oh, Lord. Me too. I'm hungry because we just started a fast. He was like, man, I'm hungry too. I could eat. And I was like, no, Adam, I think I'm hungry. And he was like, what? You need to go eat something. And it like clicked in his mind where it was like, you're hungry? I'm so excited. So then I was like, no, I can't eat. And he was like, well, you need to go tell your sister. So I go in the kitchen, and I'm, again, it's like me and Jordan are so close. I am in the kitchen, and I walk up to Jordan. She looks at me. She goes, you okay? And I was like, I'm hungry. And she just like breaks down and just hugs me. And it was like this big thing. And she was like, well, do you want to eat? And I was like, no. And in my mind, it was like, I don't want to eat because now, like preparing for Yom Kippur, I was like, I just won't smoke. It'll be fine. I'll be fine, whatever. But now it's like, now I'm going to Yom Kippur, and I can actually afflict myself and deny, literally, when I tell you.
It's an actual sacrifice. Then.
It was the most intense hunger. Like, imagine not feeling hunger for 3 years.
Yeah.
And then in a moment, 3 years worth of hunger just rushes in. And it was like, now you get to feel the hunger, and you get to appreciate it, and you don't get to eat. And it was like, I was so excited, but I was freaking in pain almost with how much my stomach hurt.
Yeah.
But then looking back, it was like, that's how it had to happen.
Yes.
That's how it had to happen.
Right. Yeah.
So I needed to, last time I was on here, it was about facing idols.
Yes.
That was the show that I did last time, was about idols.
If you haven't watched that, go back and look it up. It's good.
That was a while ago.
Yeah.
And what I didn't realize was I literally had to throw away something that had become an idol in my life in order to receive that healing.
Yeah.
But not only that, when my sister said, he can't hear you, he can't hear you, I had to blow shofars so that he could hear me.
Yes.
And so it was like this full circle, like very intense moment. And oh man, even afterwards, like after I had been healed and I could feel hunger and it was wonderful, and I was like, I'm never gonna take this for granted again. And let me tell you, I have not. I eat all the time.
Praise the Lord.
But it was like, you look back at everything and you're like, holy cow.
Yeah.
This all just came together very intensely. And it has still been a very intense and humbling process, because it took, even after I was able to feel that hunger again, I couldn't eat because my stomach had shrank so intensely. I still was going for a couple months after this where I was like, I'm still getting full after just a couple bites, because that's what I had been so used to. My stomach was so small.
Yeah.
And so I had to build that hunger back. And it was like this process, and now like I know when I'm full and I know when I'm hungry, but kind of getting to that point
It would be a
was
process, because you got to think you did this for years.
Yeah. It was a long time, and
Yeah.
the anorexia to the binging to the borderline
Well, the brain
anorexia.
process too, you know.
The mental is
that
still a
was-
problem. It still is, because it was ingrained in me for my whole life.
Mhm.
And so that's something that I battle very, very intensely, is like, I've had, you know, people in my life who are very positive when it comes to my self-image, and I've had people in my life who are very negative when it comes to my self-image, without realizing like how much it affects me. And
Yeah.
so when someone makes little comments like, you know, oh, you look like you're I don't know, anytime people mention my
Any
weight
kind of-
or anything
yeah.
like that, like I am not an overweight person. This
No,
is not
you're
a
not.
super flattering camera angle. I'm not an overweight person.
Right.
And I know that, but anytime someone makes comments, I literally have to sit there and rewire what's going on in my brain. I went
Yeah.
to try on wedding dresses. That was quite the process, because it was like, I don't want my attention drawn to the things that I'm self-conscious about. So I'm sitting there and I've got a wedding dress on and I've got all my family in the background, and they're like, you look so beautiful. And I was so overwhelmed.
Yeah.
But I was sitting there looking at myself in the mirror, and I was like, literally having to fight my brain and say, you look beautiful.
Yeah.
And force myself into that mindset. And like one of them, I was wearing, like, they put you in this like corset thing to try on all the dresses so
Yeah.
that you get the right lines.
Yeah.
And the corset, the way it happened, it like bowed out at the bottom,
Right.
and it made me look like I had a really big pooch.
Ouch.
And so I was sitting there, and my eyes were drawn to that one spot, and I was pinpointing it, and I was like spiraling, and I was literally sitting there like this. And my mother, God bless her, I love her so much, she was like, well, she was asking me questions. She just like was asking me, and she was like, well, what do you think? Do you like this? Do you like this? Do you like this? And I was like, I really need you to just give me a minute. I need you to give me a minute, because I need to process what's happening, and I need to get out of my head.
Yeah.
Because right now I want to cry. I want to scream at what I see, because my mind has been so wired to that. So that's still something I'm working on, and it has gotten so much better. But stuff like that still,
Yeah.
it still gets to me. And so it's a process. But,
Yeah, it is, because we have to just remind ourselves that, God, I know you're working, you know, and I know you're with me, and that gives you an opportunity to be with him again and reach out and go look. Because we have to sometimes get completely empty of ourselves in order to go, I need you, you know, and so I think that those moments give us an allowance and to be with him,
Yeah.
you know, because we need him.
I've got a great support group. I've got all the people at church, and you know, my fiance has really helped with rewiring my brain.
That's good.
And he's very big on compliments, but he knows me so well. He doesn't compliment specific things, so that I can't be like, no, I don't. Like, why are you saying that? Like, that's where my mind's gonna go. So he's like, oh, you look so nice today. He gives like the broad, sweet angel, right? And he's so good at that. And so he's made me feel very, very confident, which hasn't happened. You know, I don't think I've ever been fully confident in a relationship. And so, you know, being with someone who is very, very wonderful and just wants me to know how special I am, and he compliments my personality and not just like my looks. So it's a big deal. And and he's just great. So,
he is such a man of God. Yeah.
He's pretty cool.
Yeah, he is. And boy, is he good with them flags.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's true.
He does some flag for worship sometimes.
Yeah.
And the dance circle, he's very good, man.
Yeah, he's got a calling, that's for sure.
Yeah, he does.
It would be cool marrying him.
Yes, it will. Yes, it will. So, everything's still in the works for the wedding. You got I won't say what she got today, but it's really such a cute idea. Unless you want to share it.
I got rugs. That's the excitement. I got a really good deal on rugs, and so I'm really, really excited about it.
Yeah, it's such a cool idea. I never would have thought of that instead of
that was something I brought up to him. That's something I've always wanted. I was always thinking like, man, if I want a wedding, I want like rugs. I want to walk on rugs, because that's like a trendy thing.
Yeah.
And for years now, I've always been like, first of all, I never really wanted a wedding. I never really wanted a wedding. And he kind of had to talk me into a wedding, but he didn't have to try very hard.
Yeah.
Because I could picture marrying him. And I was like, man, I kind of want a wedding. Yeah. And I asked him one day, I was like, so like, how do you feel about not having a wedding? And he was like, he said this. And when I tell you, like, there's no arguing with him whenever he said this. He said, well, you know, I picture about how we're the bride and how that is such a special thing. So if this is supposed to be a representation of us being his bride, what would that be like? So that's a celebration, and that's something to be celebrated. So we need to celebrate this.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, we're having a wedding.
Yeah. You've got to go back. Did you hear Lex last night?
No, I didn't. I was busy last night.
Listen to his Q&A. Lex does a question and answers every Tuesday night.
It was 2 nights. I was like, we did marriage counseling last night.
Yeah, Tuesday nights at 9:00. So if you ever get the chance, go on Unlearn the Lies and watch it on YouTube.
Yeah.
And sometimes, you know, you can ask questions and he'll answer. So
yeah, Tuesday would have been what day is it?
Well, this is Thursday. So
yeah, but this is airing a week from now, so it'll be last Tuesday.
Right, that's true. Yeah.
So just take this date and then go last Tuesday.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what day it is.
Yeah, because this Friday will be somebody else, Celeste and John, and then when hers airs the next week after that. So.
Yeah. I
haven't got the date looked up in my calendar yet, but we're on the 3rd, so it would have been the 2nd or 1st?
The 1st, since it was Tuesday.
Okay,
it would have been the 1st.
All right, so look up August 1st Q&A for Unlearn the Lies, and if you're interested in what we're talking about, but he was talking about weddings and how, you know, if you cheat yourself from that wedding, it's almost like cheating the marriage of that. It's like taking the value and making it less, you know.
Well, that's kind of what talked me into it, was that idea.
Yeah. And so what That's so amazing. And he just had that this week too.
Yeah, this week, that's what Lex is talking about, but this was months ago. I mean, this was pretty close to whenever we started dating, because very early on, both of us were like, this is what we've been looking for. He wasn't looking for anything, to be fair, and then I kind of just like tricked him into dating me. I did. I did.
Aww.
But yeah. And we're actually going to do the Olive Branch Ministries. We're going to do their Hebrew wedding model.
Yes,
Like, we're going to do that
beautiful.
study together. We've talked about it. We haven't gotten to it.
Yeah,
yet,
when
but
Michael did that, I was just, that is such a beautiful teaching. It really is. That's something else you guys could look up too and find very interesting.
Yeah.
Just Google the Olive Branch Hebrew wedding and it'll come up for you in YouTube. You'll find it.
He's
It's
very in depth.
Yes, with everything.
Man, yeah, he's a good teacher.
Yeah, he really is. He's got the, is he English or Australian?
English.
Okay. Because that kind of catches me up just a little bit
I think
sometimes.
he's in London.
Is he?
I think.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have no idea.
But he's a good teacher. He is a good teacher.
Yeah.
Man, I appreciate you sharing this intimate part of your life with everybody. And I'm sure that someone may, in your same situation, hear what you've had to say and know that it can happen for them too. And give them hope. So I really appreciate you coming today and sharing that. Thank you so much.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Oh yeah, I just love seeing you again too.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
We don't get to see each other very often.
We don't. We got a little bit of drive now between each other. It's
A
not.
little bit.
It's not across the road. It's
Yeah. And hey, thanks for Chelsea. Thanks,
Yes.
Chelsea, for telling her about.
Yes, Chelsea. Yeah.
Because you didn't know.
I
About
hadn't
me at all.
heard.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was. I don't know why. I guess it just was meant for me not to know until now.
Hey,
Yeah.
surprise.
Yeah. Get you on the show.
Yeah.
Well, again, I just appreciate you and give David a hug for me. Tell him I said hi.
I will do that.
And in the meantime, folks, just enjoy God's journey.